in the country. But how does this new frontier, positively benefit Uganda's economy? So in studios to talk about that is Mr. Patrick Mbonye. He is the Managing Director, MD, and founder of Q Sourcing Servtec. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's talk about this oil. Of course, it's the in story. Just a few days ago, we saw the president issuing out bursaries because so far we have a deficit of 6,204 workers for the oil sector. Let's talk about that. Now, of course, the president is saying there's this gap. If we are to benefit from this, let's start with skilling, hence the bursaries. Is that a good direction to take first?
What I pick from that is that government has recognized that gap. It's been talked about for a while, and now they're taking action. They're putting aside resources for that, and which is a good thing. And my opinion is that people should seize this opportunity. The bursaries are basically a grant for individuals to go and access this skilling. This skilling is quite expensive because they're specialized trainings. And what government is doing with that bursary, what the president launched, was basically resources that will go towards subsidizing the cost of this skill for the individuals who apply for it. So what I would say is people should seize this opportunity. I know there's a lot of skepticism a lot of times because we've seen it. We've been at this for 4 years now, and as Q Sourcing, through our training arm, the Assessment and Skilling Center, and a couple of times we go to the rural areas because that's where we get our trainees. And when you ask them to apply, to submit their documentation, a lot of them, actually, we've had situations where they go through middlemen who they pay because they don't believe things come free. And you say to them, simply follow the instructions and you will get on board. So a direct response to the bursaries, the bursary scheme that was launched by the president, let people apply. Let people apply. From what I've gathered is that the next step is now we, the institutions, private and public, are going to be asked to apply to become those institutions where those who have been given bursaries can go for the training, for the skilling. Yeah.
Okay, and we'll get back to the jobs because it's one way of us as Ugandans benefiting from this particular oil boom in the country. But let's now talk about the delays that have been there. Of course, we discovered oil in 2006, and we expected that the production would actually start 2 years after, and this is 2008. But now new news is in, and the production will be actually, pushed to 2021. Help us understand, why are we seeing these dates being pushed and postponed time and again?
From my own observation, again, I don't speak as a spokesman, but my own observation, these are negotiations that are going on. You've got a resource that these oil companies have come to invest in. The resource will be taken out of the ground so that they can benefit from it. Government is a shareholder. Government is a stakeholder in there. There are a couple of other things that have to happen. Let me also put into perspective that there is a part of this resource that will be taken through the export pipeline. The pipeline has got to be built, so there are timelines involved, and by the time the oil comes out of the ground, the pipeline has got to be ready. There is a refinery where they'll be processing, so these two exit points from the oil out of the ground have got to be ready. And being ready, not necessarily that they are already built, but there has to be timelines, and those timelines are in documentation. So all these things have got to be agreed to. Their terms and conditions. These are massive contracts. So I imagine those who are involved in those negotiations are at it, and every single dot on the I's, the cross on the T's have got to be finished, because if you don't do that, then you'll have a mess going forward, as you've had in many countries where you just rush into something and then you got into arbitration and conflict and stuff like that. So I imagine that government is trying to make sure that they are well prepared before they really sign the dotted line.
Okay.
So it gives them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Let them go through the process.
Yeah. Speaking of the pipeline, of course, there's this pipeline that is going to run through Uganda, Tanzania, and apparently it's supposed to be roughly 1,445 kilometers long, and we're yet to get financing for this, but the target of getting the financing is mid next year, around June thereabout, and they say that after we get the financing, it will take roughly about 30 to 36 months of construction. So with that in mind, help us understand. So we have this oil, meaning we are rich. We need to actually be bragging as a country. But how do we benefit from it? And what Omuntu Wawansi wants to understand is, fine, we're already seeing many international bodies coming into the country, scrambling, so to speak, for this particular gold, black gold. So how do we end up benefiting from this? Fine, they will help us get this oil off the ground, but moving forward, will they go with this oil to their countries, or will it remain here for us to determine who we are going to sell it to and the market rates? Help us understand that dynamic. We have the oil, they've helped us to remove it. What next?
As a private player in this business, and what I've picked from my engagement with those that contract, where we're looking for bids and traveling, trying to read a lot about it. One, the issue of the financing, the pipeline requirements and all that, there's a lot of things that go into that. First of all, they didn't come to help us. They're in it for business.
They're in it for business.
It's business.
Okay.
And it either makes business sense to them or not. They are investors. They're a private company. They have to report shares. I mean, they have to report profits to their shareholders.
So they're in it for business.
Correct.
We've gone to them to help us explore this oil and remove it off the ground, and maybe a little bit of production here and there. So if they're in it for business, I can imagine, how do we pay it back? Do we get into now a contract of being sure that we pay them on their investment, their return on investment, or we're going to pay this back with our precious oil?
I don't know the details of the negotiations, but as a business person, I would imagine that it has to make business sense for me. And if you look at Total, you look at Sinok, Talo, there are negotiations, and government is a shareholder. So government is also looking at how much it's getting out. So the discussions that are going on are business discussions. They are not humanitarian discussions. So that we have to understand. They are business discussions, and the only thing we can ask is how much is government negotiating out of that. It will come in form of returns, I imagine, returns on our investment, in forms of taxes or whatever else comes out of that, and then peripheral activities. How much activity is surrounding those explorative activities, the development phase, because we're going into development now. The construction of the pipeline, construction of the refinery, construction of the reserve, the pullover. Yeah. A lot of things are going to happen, right? And even along the pipeline, there are going to be camps. There are going to be those base stations and a lot of the pump stations. Sorry. Now, how do we, as individuals, benefit? One thing we have to understand: there's not going to be anything free. Either you have a skill that you have to offer, and they need the skill, and so you get employed and you get paid for it. Or two, you have a service or a product that they love, it meets their standard, and they'll pay for it. So you get into a contract and you offer the quality and quantity that they require. So what I would advise in this case is Omuntu Wawansi has to ask themselves, first of all, what skill do I have, right? What set of skills do I have? Then go find out what skills do these guys need or want, and when do they need it. You'll find yourselves in some situations where the level of skill that you have will not meet the standard that they require. So seek to add value to your skill set to meet that standard. And there are opportunities here. We've been, as an example, we've been training, assessing, gap filling, and certifying. Right now, we've certified over 500 people.
Over 500?
500.
All right.
In the areas of welding, electrical installation, plumbing, scaffolder work, and EHS officers. And all these we do under accreditation by bodies that are recognized and have been at it for a long time. They know what standard this oil sector requires. And when we went into it, it was not so much the oil sector, because we serve manufacturing sector, we serve infrastructure sector, and all these guys require high standards because it helps them, one, to reduce downtime, also the insurance premium is down because there are few incidents. And remember, why they need competent people is they don't want to have incidents on the ground. And Mara, let me give you a scenario. If you place a person who has never driven a manual car in a manual car because you've seen him drive a car, you don't know that car, you don't realize that that car probably was an automatic car. Okay, so you place him in this manual car, and he grapples with it. Somehow he moves the car. Being a driver does not mean you're competent to drive a particular vehicle.
Right.
So you have got to be assessed on the terms of that vehicle, the conditions that that vehicle operates under. Are you competent to do it? And this is really what I can advise those who are looking out for who say they have skills. So you have to be assessed in that particular trade, and it's not like these things are from us. No, they're here.
Okay, and let's just stick to the scramble that is there. Of course, yesterday, in case you grabbed your copies in the East African, the big title there and the headline was Russia leading new scramble for Juba oil. So it's not just here in Uganda, but across African nations that are actually with this oil. So let's take a look at the Europeans who are now camping here in Uganda and what they have to say with regards to the oil boom in Uganda. Let's take a look.
The government representatives are still very much confident that these things will happen within the given timelines. We have cautioned that the final investment decision of the consortium for the pipeline has still not been made and has been pushed into the first half of 2019 now, as we could learn from previous engagements with Total, CNOC and Tallow. We have seen them all last week in Kampala. So there is still some time to go until the oil will flow and until the oil will be refined. And in the meantime, what we want to find out is how well prepared is the region, how is the airport moving on.
The topic of the day is the oil project. We are the #1 development partner of Uganda. So the oil project is very important for us as well. We are looking forward for that project to take off because we believe it will transform the economy of Uganda as a whole. It will change the entire landscape of Uganda because the influx of money, if well managed, should benefit hugely to the entire country.
And I'm glad that you earlier mentioned that they're in it for the business. So let's get to that. How, and I'll ask you this again, as opposed to jobs, we already know that the jobs are going to be minimal because it's high skilling and you have to meet the standards of this particular people. So with this trickling down to the economy, to the citizenry, what should the government do? What controls and what measures should they put in place to ensure that this oil benefits us? Because you've seen countries like Nigeria getting it wrong. Actually, Nigeria right now is arguably poorer compared to how it was before they knew they had the oil. So if we're not to get to that point of Nigeria and other African countries, what should the government do?
You made a statement that it's really the turning point. And the issue is, of the job opportunities that are out there, it's very few of them that are actually very highly skilled, where the foreigners, the experts will really, those who have many years of experience will be required. Over 77% of the jobs that are required are on the skilled and unskilled category. And we're talking welders, electricians, we're talking carpenters, we're talking the EHS guys, we're talking the scaffolders. That's 77%. So the question is, if we really want to enjoy this opportunity, I mean, look at the low-hanging fruit. Don't go to compete with the engineers. Yes, you can try. You can go and compete because they are there. We've got engineers, by the way, Ugandan engineers who are competent to do that work. But we've got a big youth population out there. We've got a big population that can benefit from those lower skill jobs. Lower skill doesn't mean being unskilled, okay? And once we train these guys, by the way, it's not that it's the oil sector here that's going to take them. There are a lot of countries that keep asking us, they want some of the guys whom we train. And Juba, as you saw in the papers, will not be an exception. They will need people to go there, and people will know the terrain, and Ugandans have been there. So those are opportunities. There are a lot of requests that we've gotten from Qatar. You know, they're building for the World Cup, but we're not yet ready, so we couldn't supply a lot of that. From Abu Dhabi, they require coded welders, as an example. Coded welders is, there are people who may say they're welders, but it's not about being a welder per se. There are different positions in welding. There's what they call the 1G position. This is like just plate, flat welding, right? Then you'll see a 2G position. This is where you're welding across. Then there's the 3G, where it's vertical, right? Then there's overhead welding. That is structure welding, only structure welding. Then there's the pipe welding. This is where you weld a pipe like so. This is where you weld a pipe like so. This is where you weld it at an angle. Each and every one of those then requires you to be competent to weld different material.
Okay, so that's on the front of the jobs.
Yes.
But how does this trickle down to the citizenry? Maybe I'm a citizen, maybe I'm a Muntu Awansi. I really don't care about oil. Maybe I'm not even passionate, I don't want to think about it. But since it's the new frontier in Uganda right now, of course, I'm sure if managed well, it's going to take to our economy to the other level. Over and above agriculture, what we're known for. So if it's to trickle down to our economy and benefit Omuntu Awansi, what should happen?
Omuntu Awansi, I mean, even us, we were Omuntu Awansi, and we're trying to participate in this.
Yes.
So there's either you benefit directly, where you're supplying a skill, or you're giving a service or product, right?
So what you're telling me is, it's hard. It's gonna be hard for this to benefit us indirectly through the economy.
That's the direct. Then there's the indirect. Indirect is you're gonna have big numbers of people coming in through the airport, all the way through to the well pads, to the pipeline points, the maintenance points, and all that. All that is economic activity, right? So there's going to be money flowing in. So the question is, what I can tell you, Mara, is if you don't have a service that you can offer, if you don't have a product that you can sell, if you don't have a skill that is required, you're not going to benefit.
Oh, thank you for being honest. Repeat that again.
Yeah, because if there's no money that's going to be left on the roadside for people to pick, no. These guys who are coming in are going to need accommodation, they're going to need airtime, they're going to need food, they're going to need hair salons for the ladies, they're going to need bars, restaurants, hotels, all that, right? But all these have got to meet their standards. So even those who work in those places have got to be trained in those areas, as in they're certified. So it's not very unique.
So the only Ugandan that is going to benefit from this is them that are in these offices and spaces that strike these deals. That's what you're telling me.
No.
In a short.
No. Actually, those don't benefit.
Yeah.
It's those on the ground who are offering the service.
Who are going to benefit?
Who are going to benefit directly.
Oh, okay.
So what I can say, and I heard just before the show, people saying, those who don't speak English, can you offer a service? And I'll give you a scenario. When we do our training, if we assess you and we find you've got some gaps, we do the gap filling. The final assessor flies in. Some of them coming from the Middle East. They don't need to speak English. they have got what you call a WPS instruction sheet. So they give you your cubicle, they give you your machinery. Each and every one of these things have got, the machines have to be calibrated, the materials have got to be certified, as in there is what they call a material document that reads out the specs. The welding rods, maybe even the copper wires, the electrical stuff and stuff like that. They then give you that instruction. You use these materials, use this equipment, and they observe you. There is no communication with you.
I get you.
You don't need to speak English. All they need, you have to read the instructions, certainly, because at the end of it, the assessment is not as answering questions. No, it's the product that you have produced that is subjected to tests. If they do not pass those integrity tests, then you, the one who produced it, is the one who is not competent.
Okay, and let's just look at Nigeria and see if there are any lessons to be learned from there. And we have a bite from there, and I think my director will try and get it for me. And what the conversation was on as we come to a close is, for Nigeria, now corruption has been rife because of this particular oil gold, black gold. And I understand the bite is ready. So before I even expound more, let's just take a look at this bite. Let's see. Okay, unfortunately we don't have that sound, but we'll be sure to share it on social media. Now, with Nigeria, the issue has been corruption in this particular space, of course, by the high and mighty in the land. And like you said, it's all about the negotiation between us, the Ugandan government, and this particular Muzungus that are coming to help us explore this oil. So how do we ensure that these particular contracts and agreements are actually mutually beneficial for the both parties? As we come to a close, I'm just giving you 1 minute.
Mara, corruption or a bribe occurs when I have to induce you to give me the job because probably I'm not competent. That's the root cause of corruption. So what we need to do is to make sure that we've got adequate numbers of companies, people, and we negotiate for these deals. Once you negotiate for a transaction and you can offer that service, you'll be paid for it.
All right.
So there's not a lot of room for corruption.
Okay, so it all boils down to the negotiation.
Negotiation and being competent to offer the service. So what we need to strive for is to be competent.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you so much. I think we need to make more time for this particular conversation so we can break it down. There's a lot that has been left and tackled. But thank you so much, Mr. Patrick Mbonye, MD and founder of Q Sourcing Servtec here in the country. Thank you so much. That has been it. Keep your views coming. We are on the hashtag Morning at NTV across all social media platforms. Morning at NTV is still continued. Stay here.
Governor presents Friday Night Live with the legendary Afrigo.